Ethan Rivera walked into the xenobiology lecture hall and immediately noticed something different. The usual rows of seats had been pushed back, creating a wide circle around a massive metal container in the center of the room. Blue energy fields shimmered across its surface, and warning lights blinked at each corner. He found a seat near the middle section, setting his datapad on the desk. Around him, students from a dozen different species whispered nervously. Their eyes kept darting toward the container, then quickly away as if even looking at it might be dangerous. "Is that what I think it is?" asked Kessa, sliding into the seat beside him. The Palaxian's skin had turned a pale yellow color. Ethan had learned that meant she was scared. Her large, wet eyes blinked sideways as she leaned as far from the container as her chair would allow. "Probably something for today's lesson," Ethan said, pulling up his notes from the last class. "Professor Velk mentioned we'd be studying apex predators this week." Kessa's skin went even paler. "Apex predators?" "Here. In the classroom." Before Ethan could answer, the professor entered through the side door. Professor Velk was a Zentarii, looking somewhat like a giant praying mantis standing upright. Her multiple eyes caught the light as she moved, and her mandibles clicked together in what Ethan had learned was excitement. "Good morning, students," she said, her translator device converting her clicks and chirps into standard Galactic. "Today we have a very special lesson. I have obtained permission to bring in a live specimen for observation." The room went completely silent. Several students shifted even further back in their seats. Professor Velk moved toward the container, her thin arms gesturing dramatically. "I present to you one of the most dangerous creatures in the known galaxy. A Vretal hunting beast from Korvax Prime." A wave of gasps and frightened chirps filled the room. Two students near the front actually stood up and moved to seats in the back row. Now, the professor said, raising her arms. "There is no need for panic. The creature is behind 3 layers of containment fields. It cannot possibly escape. We are perfectly safe." Ethan leaned forward, interested now. Through the transparent sections of the container, he could see the creature inside. It was about the size of a large tiger, with smooth black scales that seemed to absorb light. Its body was low and powerful, built for speed and strength. 6 legs ended in curved claws, and its head featured a mouth full of teeth designed for tearing meat. Most striking were its eyes, 4 of them, glowing a dim red in the shadows of its cage. "The Vretal," Professor Velkdar continued, "is an apex predator from a high-gravity world. It can run at speeds exceeding 80 kilometers per hour. Its jaws can crush duralloy plating. It hunts in packs in the wild, using coordinated attacks to bring down prey much larger than itself. This specimen was captured after it killed 17 members of a mining colony on Theta Station." More nervous sounds rippled through the classroom. Kessa had pressed herself against the far side of her seat, putting as much distance as possible between herself and the container. A loud voice came from Ethan's right. "I still don't understand why the Academy allowed a human into our program." Ethan turned to see Thrawn, a KRWL student, staring at him with obvious disdain. The KRWL looked somewhat like an armored beetle, with a thick carapace and multiple arms. Thrawn was one of the larger students and he enjoyed reminding everyone of it. "The human probably thinks that creature looks like a pet," Thrawn continued, loud enough for others to hear. Several students made sounds that might have been laughter. "Primitive Deathworlders don't understand real danger." Ethan said nothing. He had learned during his first week at Galactic Academy that responding to Thrawn only encouraged him. Instead, he turned his attention back to the Vretal. The creature was moving now, pacing along one side of its container. Its movements were fluid and precise. Each step was placed carefully, deliberately. Ethan recognized the behavior. He had seen it before in big cats at wildlife sanctuaries back on Earth. The animal was testing its enclosure, looking for weak points, measuring distances. "Can anyone tell me," Professor Velkdar asked, "what makes the Vretal such an effective predator?" A Thurian student raised one of his tentacles. "Its speed and strength?" "Partially correct," the professor said. "But many creatures possess speed and strength. What makes the Vretal special is its intelligence. It can learn, adapt, and plan. It studies its prey, watches for patterns, waits for the perfect moment to strike." As if to demonstrate, the Vretal suddenly stopped pacing. It sat on its haunches, all 4 eyes fixed on the classroom. Ethan felt the weight of its stare. The creature was watching them, studying them. He could see the intelligence behind those glowing eyes. "Note the hunting posture," Professor Velkdar said, moving closer to the container. "See how it has positioned itself to observe maximum area? It is categorizing each of us, determining which would be easiest prey. Several students made distressed noises. One actually got up and left the classroom entirely. Ethan continued to watch the creature. It reminded him of the mountain lions he had encountered while hiking in Colorado. Same patient stillness. Same calculating stare. Same coiled readiness to explode into action at any moment. The main difference was that this creature was significantly larger and had more teeth. The Vrital's eyes swept across the room, pausing briefly on each student. When its gaze reached Ethan, something changed. The creature's head tilted slightly as if confused. Its eyes remained locked on him for several seconds longer than they had with any other student. Fascinating, Professor Velkthar chittered. It seems particularly interested in our human student. Perhaps it has never encountered your species before, Ethan. More likely it recognizes easy prey, Thrawn muttered, loud enough to be heard. Soft skin, no natural armor, no claws or venom. Humans are fragile compared to most species. Kessa glanced at Ethan with concern, but he simply shrugged. He had heard variations of this speech before. Many of the alien species at the Academy came from worlds with relatively mild ecosystems. They had trouble understanding that Earth, classified as a Class 12 death world, had shaped humans in ways they couldn't imagine. The Vrital's tail twitched, then went still. Its breathing had slowed. Ethan recognized the shift. The creature had moved from observation mode into something else. Something more focused. It had selected a target. Professor Velkthar launched into a detailed explanation of the creature's biological systems, but Ethan only half listened. He kept his attention on the Vrital. The creature's muscles had tensed beneath its scales. Its claws extended and retracted rhythmically. Its eyes never blinked. Something was wrong. Ethan could feel it, an instinct honed by millions of years of human evolution. The same instinct that had kept his ancestors alive on the African savanna. The same instinct that whispered warnings when predators were near. The Vrital was getting ready to move. The lights flickered once. Then twice. Professor Velkthar paused mid-sentence, her mandibles clicking in confusion. A low humming sound filled the lecture hall, growing louder with each passing second. That's odd, the professor said, turning toward the control panel near her desk. The power grid should be stable today. There weren't any maintenance schedules posted. The humming grew into a whine. The blue energy fields surrounding the container began to pulse irregularly, their steady glow becoming erratic. Bright flashes sparked along the edges where the fields met. Inside the container, the Vrital rose to its feet. Its head swung toward the weakening barriers, and its lips pulled back to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth. Everyone remain calm, Professor Velkthar said, but her voice carried an edge of worry. She tapped rapidly at the control panel. This is just a minor fluctuation. The backup systems will engage momentarily. The lights went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in half a second later, bathing the room in dim red illumination. In that brief moment of darkness, Ethan heard a sound that made his blood run cold. The distinct crack of energy fields collapsing. When the red lights came on, the container's door hung open. The Vrital stood in the opening, its 4 eyes gleaming in the emergency lighting. For one frozen moment, nothing moved. The creature surveyed the room with those intelligent, predatory eyes. Then chaos erupted. Students screamed and bolted for the exits. Chairs crashed to the floor as dozens of beings scrambled over each other in panic. Kessa shrieked and dove under her desk, her skin flashing through every color of terror. A Thurian student's tentacles flailed wildly as he tried to squeeze through a crowd already jamming the doorway. Professor Velkthar's mandibles clacked in distress. She slammed her hand against the emergency alarm, and a piercing siren began to wail. Security to Lecture Hall 7. Code Red. Containment breach. The Vrital stepped out of its container with deliberate slowness. Its claws clicked against the floor tiles, each step precise and measured. It showed no interest in the fleeing students. Instead, it lowered its head and inhaled deeply, testing the air. Ethan forced himself to remain absolutely still. Every muscle in his body screamed at him to run, to follow the stampede of students rushing for safety. But a deeper instinct, older and wiser, kept him frozen in his seat. He knew what running would do. He had seen enough nature documentaries. He had heard enough stories from wildlife experts. Running triggered the chase response. Movement meant prey. He controlled his breathing, taking slow, steady breaths through his nose. His heart hammered against his ribs, but he focused on keeping his external appearance calm. No sudden movements. No rapid breathing that would release fear pheromones. Nothing that would mark him as prey. The Vrital's head swung toward the exits where students fought to escape. Its muscles tensed. For a moment Ethan thought it would charge the crowd. Easy targets, panicked and vulnerable. But something else caught its attention. Thrawn had frozen near the front row. The large HFY student stood like a statue, his armored body locked in place. Unlike the other students who had run immediately, Thrawn's biology had betrayed him. His species' defense mechanism wasn't flight. It was to lock down, relying on his thick carapace to protect him from danger. But that meant he was still here. Still visible. Still very much a target. The Vrital's 4 eyes locked onto Thrawn. Its tail began to twitch, sweeping back and forth in a slow rhythm. The creature's breathing changed, becoming faster and shallower. Ethan recognized the shift immediately. He had seen it in predators back on Earth. The animal had selected its prey. Thrawn's eyes, wide with terror, swiveled toward the exits. Ethan could see the HFY student calculating, trying to determine if he could make it to the door before the creature reached him. It was a bad calculation. Even Ethan could see that Thrawn was too far away, and the Vrital was too close. The creature took one step forward. Then another. It moved with the confidence of a predator that knew its prey had nowhere to go. Its claws extended fully, scraping against the floor with each step. Saliva dripped from its open mouth. Professor Velk had backed against the wall, her translator chirping out panicked distress calls. She had no weapons, no way to stop what was about to happen. The emergency doors were sealed until security arrived, designed to contain threats to this room only. Thrawn's nerve broke. He spun and ran. It was exactly the wrong thing to do. The Vrital exploded into motion. 6 powerful legs propelled it forward with terrifying speed. In less than 2 seconds, it had closed half the distance to Thrawn. The HFY student scrambled over desks and chairs, his armored body moving far too slowly. Ethan's mind raced. He remained frozen in his seat, but his eyes tracked every movement. The creature's gait, the way it distributed its weight, the angle of its approach. He saw patterns, familiar patterns. This wasn't so different from the predators on Earth. Different shape, different planet, but the same basic hunting instincts. The Vrital used its forward momentum to launch itself onto a desk, using the higher ground to scan for its prey. Thrawn had made it to the side wall and was trying to climb toward a ventilation grate. His claws scraped uselessly against the smooth metal surface. The creature crouched, preparing to pounce. Its haunches bunched with power. This was the killing strike, the moment when the hunt ended. Ethan's fingers gripped the edge of his desk. His mind screamed at him to do something, anything. But what could he do? He had no weapons. No armor. Nothing but his fragile human body against a creature that had killed 17 trained miners. But he did have something those miners probably didn't have. He had grown up on Earth. He had learned from childhood how to read predators, how to understand the language of teeth and claws. His planet had taught him lessons that no safe world species would ever learn. The Vrital's muscles tensed for the final leap. Thrawn pressed himself against the wall, making a high-pitched keening sound that was probably a HFY prayer. Time seemed to slow down. Ethan could see every detail with crystal clarity. The way the creature's weight shifted to its rear legs. The angle of its trajectory. The distance to its target. Everything moved with the terrible certainty of physics and biology combining toward one inevitable conclusion. Security would be too late. Professor Velk was too far away and too helpless. The other students had either escaped or hidden. In seconds, Thrawn would die, torn apart by claws and teeth while everyone watched helplessly. Unless someone did something impossible. Unless someone did something incredibly stupid. Ethan took a deep breath and made his decision. His grandfather had told him stories about facing down mountain lions in Montana. His uncle had described staring down a charging bear in Alaska. Humans had survived on Earth not just by running or hiding, but by standing their ground when necessary. By refusing to be prey. He slowly stood up from his seat. The movement was controlled, deliberate. Not the jerky panic of prey, but the steady confidence of something that didn't fear being eaten. The Vrital's head snapped toward him. All 4 eyes fixed on this new movement, this unexpected variable in its hunt. For a moment, the creature seemed confused, caught between 2 targets. Ethan met its gaze directly. Every instinct told him to look away, to submit, to flee. But he held that stare, channeling every ounce of human stubbornness into that moment. He wasn't prey. He refused to be prey. The creature's tail stopped twitching. Its attention shifted fully away from Thrawn, drawn to this strange new development. The Vrital stared at Ethan, its 4 eyes glowing in the red emergency lighting. The creature's head tilted slightly as if trying to understand what it was seeing. This small, soft thing wasn't running. Wasn't hiding. It stood there looking back at the predator with steady eyes. Ethan kept his breathing slow and controlled. His heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat, but he didn't let that show on his face. He had learned this from his grandfather's stories about wildlife encounters. Predators could smell fear, could see it in body language. They respected confidence. "Easy," Ethan said, his voice low and calm. He spoke in English, knowing the creature wouldn't understand the words. But tone mattered more than language. Every predator understood tone. "Nobody needs to get hurt here." Professor Velk there made a sound like breaking glass. "Ethan, no. Stay still. Don't move." But Ethan was already moving. He took one step forward, then stopped. The Vrital's muscles tensed, but it didn't attack. It watched him, curious now instead of aggressive. Ethan could see the shift in its posture. The killing intent had paused, replaced by confusion. Behind the creature, Thrawn remained pressed against the wall, his entire body shaking. He made no sound now, perhaps afraid to draw the predator's attention back to himself. Ethan took another step. His movements were smooth and deliberate, like flowing water. No jerky motions. No sudden changes. Just steady, confident forward progress. He kept his hands visible and relaxed at his sides. "That's right," he murmured. "I'm not prey. You can tell, can't you? Something's different about me." The Vrital lowered its head slightly, bringing its eyes level with Ethan's. This was a testing behavior. Ethan had seen it in dogs, in wolves, in big cats. The creature was trying to determine dominance. Trying to decide if this strange being was a threat, prey, or something else entirely. Ethan didn't break eye contact. He didn't blink. He poured every ounce of calm confidence into his gaze. In his mind, he thought about every dangerous animal he had ever encountered on Earth. The rattlesnake on the hiking trail that he had calmly walked around. The black bear near his campsite that he had scared off by standing tall and making noise. The stray dogs in the city that had backed down when he refused to show fear. Earth had taught him well. "You're not hungry," Ethan said softly, taking another step. He was only 3 meters away now, close enough to see the individual scales on the creature's hide. Close enough to smell its breath, which reminded him of hot metal and raw meat. "They fed you before bringing you here." Professor Velk there wouldn't risk a hungry predator in a classroom. The creature's tail had stopped moving. That was good. A still tail meant it wasn't in active hunting mode anymore. Ethan filed that information away, comparing it to cat behavior. So many patterns were universal, it seemed. From under her desk, Kessa whispered in a voice barely audible. "He's going to die. Oh stars, he's going to die and we're going to watch it happen." But Ethan didn't feel like he was going to die. His instincts, honed by millions of years of evolution on a deadly world, told him something different. This creature was confused, not aggressive. It had lost the initiative, lost the predator's advantage. Now it was trying to figure out what Ethan was. He reached into his pocket slowly, carefully. His fingers closed around a protein bar he had been saving for lunch. He pulled it out, unwrapped it with one hand while maintaining eye contact, and took a bite. Then he chewed slowly, calmly, as if he had all the time in the world. The Vrital's head tilted further. Its nostrils flared, taking in the scent of food. But more importantly, taking in the scent of Ethan's complete lack of fear. He was eating. Predators didn't eat when they were scared. Prey didn't eat when they were about to die. "See," Ethan said around his mouthful of food. "Just another day. Nothing special happening here." He took another step. 2 meters away now. Close enough that the creature could kill him with one leap. Close enough that he could see his reflection in its glowing eyes. But he kept his body language loose and unthreatening. Not aggressive but not submissive either. Just confident. Present. Unafraid. The Vrital made a sound, something between a growl and a questioning chirp. Ethan recognized it as confusion. The creature had hunted hundreds of beings across multiple worlds. It understood prey behavior. It understood threat behavior. But this was something new. "I know," Ethan said softly. "I'm weird. Humans are weird. We come from a planet that tried really hard to kill us for millions of years. It made us strange." He extended his hand, moving very slowly. Palm down, fingers relaxed. The same way you'd let a dog sniff your hand. The same way he had approached countless animals back on Earth. Confidence wrapped in non-threatening packaging. Professor Velk there made a sound like her translator was malfunctioning. "Impossible. This is impossible. No species approaches a Vrital voluntarily. The fear response is too strong." But Ethan didn't have a normal fear response. Earth had beaten that out of humanity's ancestors. On a planet where everything was trying to kill you, you learned to face danger head-on. You learned to read it, understand it, and work with it. Or you died. The Vrital leaned forward, its nose nearly touching Ethan's outstretched hand. It inhaled deeply, analyzing every chemical signal Ethan's body was producing. He knew what it would find. No fear pheromones flooding his system. No stress markers screaming prey. Just calm, steady confidence backed by adrenaline that sharpened rather than panicked. The creature's tongue flicked out, tasting the air around Ethan's hand. It was rough and warm, leaving a trail of saliva on his skin. Ethan didn't flinch. Didn't pull back. He held perfectly still, letting the creature complete its investigation. Then, slowly, carefully, Ethan lowered his hand until it rested on the Vrital's head. Right between its eyes, where cats and dogs like to be scratched. His fingers pressed gently into the creature's scales, finding the tension points in its muscles. The lecture hall went absolutely silent except for the emergency sirens still wailing in the background. Ethan began to scratch, using his fingernails to work the tight muscles beneath the scales. The Vrital's eyes half closed. A deep rumbling started in its chest, almost like a purr but deeper and more resonant. The creature's body relaxed, its aggressive posture melting away. "Good," Ethan murmured. "See? Not so scary. You're just a big cat from space. Probably haven't had a decent scratch in months, stuck in that container." He used both hands now, working along the creature's neck and shoulders. The Vrital leaned into the touch, its tail beginning to sweep back and forth in what was clearly pleasure rather than aggression. That rumbling purr grew louder. From the doorway someone gasped. Ethan glanced up to see security personnel frozen in the entrance, their stun weapons raised but not firing. They stared at the scene before them as if their brains couldn't process what their eyes were seeing. A human. Petting a Vrital. The creature's head now resting against Ethan's chest as he scratched behind what might have been its ears. The most dangerous predator in the known galaxy, acting like someone's pet. Thrawn slowly slid down the wall into a sitting position, his legs apparently unable to support him anymore. His mandibles worked soundlessly, trying to form words that wouldn't come. Kessa emerged from under her desk, her skin cycling through colors so fast it looked like a rainbow. "How?" she whispered. "How is he alive?" Professor Velk, Thar approached slowly, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "The creature is exhibiting submission behaviors. I have never seen this documented in any research. Vrital are apex predators. They don't submit to anything. They submit to something more confident than themselves," Ethan said, still scratching the creature's scales. "It's basic predator psychology. If you act like prey, you become prey. If you act like you're not afraid, they get confused. Confusion leads to hesitation. Hesitation gives you time to establish a connection." The Vrital yawned, showing all of its terrifying teeth, then settled more comfortably against Ethan. Its eyes fully closed now, completely relaxed. One of the security officers lowered his weapon, his expression one of total disbelief. "On Earth," Ethan continued, "we have this saying. The best way to not get eaten is to convince the predator that you're not worth eating. That you're strange. Different. Maybe dangerous in ways they don't understand." He looked directly at Thrawn. "Being physically weak doesn't make you prey. Acting like prey makes you prey." The head of security, a massive Grithian named Commander Torvik, pushed through the doorway with his weapon drawn. He was built like a tank, with gray armored plating covering his body and 4 arms that could bend steel. Behind him, 6 more security officers spread out in tactical formation, their stun rifles trained on the Vrital. Torvik stopped mid-step when he saw the scene before him. His weapon lowered slightly, his eyes widening in confusion. "What in the name of the Founders?" Ethan continued scratching behind the Vrital's head ridge. The creature made a contented rumbling sound and leaned more of its weight against him. "Everything's under control, Commander. No need for weapons." "Under control?" Torvik's voice came out as a strangled sound. "That creature killed 17 beings on Theta Station. It tore through reinforced security doors. It ate a armed security team. And you're petting it?" "Well, yes," Ethan said calmly. "It's not aggressive anymore. Just needed someone to not act like prey around it." One of the security officers, a thin Palaxian female, made a high-pitched noise of distress. "Sir, my scanner shows the human's heart rate is actually decreasing. He's becoming calmer while touching the predator." Professor Velk, Thar had pulled out her own data pad and was recording everything. Her mandibles clicked rapidly as she processed what she was seeing. "Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. The creature has entered a state of complete submission. Look at its body language. Relaxed musculature. Closed eyes. Reduced respiration. It trusts him. Torvik slowly holstered his weapon, though he kept one hand near it. I don't understand. How did you do this? We studied the Vrital for months before transport. Every simulation showed them as unstoppable killing machines. Ethan shrugged, still maintaining contact with the creature. They're predators, not monsters. Predators follow patterns. If you understand the patterns, you can work with them instead of against them. Thrawn had finally found his voice. It came out weak and shaky. But you just walked up to it. You didn't even have a weapon. You should be dead. We should all be dead. Maybe on your worlds, Ethan said. But I'm from Earth. Things work differently there. Kessa had moved closer, though she still kept several desks between herself and the Vrital. Her skin had settled on a pale green color. I've heard stories about Earth. They say it's a dangerous place, but I thought they were exaggerations. Professor Velkthar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Oh, they are not exaggerations. Quite the opposite, actually. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. One of the most hostile environments in the known galaxy. The security officers exchanged glances. One of them, a young Zentarii male, spoke up hesitantly. What does Class 12 mean exactly? Professor Velkthar pulled up a holographic display from her datapad. Images of Earth appeared in the air, showing vast oceans, dense jungles, frozen wastelands, and scorching deserts. It means that Earth scores exceptionally high on every danger metric we use to evaluate planets. Extreme weather patterns. Violent geological activity. Atmospheric oxygen levels that would be toxic to most species. And most significantly, an ecosystem filled with creatures designed to kill. She swiped through images. A great white shark breaching the water. A saltwater crocodile with jaws that could crush bone. A grizzly bear standing 3 meters tall. A king cobra with enough venom to kill dozens of beings. Earth has more apex predators per square kilometer than any other inhabited world in the galactic community. Humans didn't evolve at the top of the food chain. They evolved in the middle, being hunted by hundreds of species while simultaneously learning to hunt them back. Torvik stared at the images with growing horror. These creatures all live on the same planet? How do humans survive? They learned, Ethan said simply. My ancestors had to understand predator behavior or die. It's not optional when you're surrounded by things that want to eat you. You learn to read body language. You learn what triggers an attack and what causes hesitation. You learn that confidence is sometimes the only weapon you need. He gestured at the Vrital still pressed against him. This creature isn't that different from a big cat back on Earth. Same hunting patterns. Same dominance behaviors. Same response to confidence versus fear. Once I recognized those patterns, it was just a matter of not acting like prey. Professor Velkthar pulled up another screen, this one showing statistics. Earth has a planetary lethality rating of 97%. That means 97% of species on Earth possess the capability to kill a human under the right circumstances. For comparison, most civilized worlds have lethality ratings below 20%. The room fell silent as everyone processed that number. 97%. Kessa's skin flashed yellow again. You mean almost everything on your planet can kill you? Pretty much, Ethan confirmed. Spiders, snakes, jellyfish, plants, bacteria, even some frogs. There's a caterpillar in Australia that causes pain so severe people have considered suicide to make it stop. There are ants whose bite feels like being shot. There are fish so poisonous that touching them can kill you in minutes. And you just live there? Willingly? One of the security officers sounded genuinely confused by this concept. Ethan smiled slightly. It's home. You get used to it. You learn which things to avoid and which things are safe. You develop instincts. My dad taught me how to identify venomous snakes when I was 5 years old. My mom taught me what to do if I encountered a mountain lion on a hiking trail. By the time I was 10, I knew how to recognize the warning signs of dozens of dangerous animals. Torvik shook his massive head slowly. Your parents taught you survival skills against apex predators when you were a child? That's not education. That's combat training. It's just life on Earth, Ethan said. Every human grows up learning these things. We have to. It's not special or unusual. It's just survival. Professor Velkthar zoomed in on one of the images showing a human swimmer next to a great white shark. Humans engage in recreational activities that would be classified as suicidal on other worlds. They swim in oceans containing massive predators. They climb mountains where the air is too thin to breathe properly. They explore caves that could collapse at any moment. They seek out danger for enjoyment. We call it adventure sports, Ethan said with a slight grin. Gets the blood pumping. Thrawn had recovered enough to stand, though his legs still seemed unsteady. He approached slowly, staring at Ethan with an expression that mixed fear and respect. I mocked you. I called you primitive. I said humans were weak. You weren't entirely wrong, Ethan said, still scratching the Vrital. Humans are physically weak compared to most galactic species. We have no natural armor, no claws, no venom. Our strength is average at best. But we learn to survive anyway. We learn to think our way out of problems. We learn to understand the things that wanted to kill us. The Vrital shifted position, rolling slightly so Ethan could reach its belly. The creature's 6 legs sprawled out in complete trust. Several security officers made sounds of disbelief. This is impossible, one of them whispered. Vrital never exposed their vulnerable areas. Never. It trusts me now, Ethan explained. Because I didn't act like prey. I acted like something it couldn't quite categorize. Something that confused it enough to make it reconsider its assumptions. Humans are good at that. We don't fit into normal predator-prey relationships. We're adaptable. Unpredictable. Professor Velkthar was recording frantically, her multiple eyes darting between Ethan and her data pad. This will revolutionize our understanding of human psychology. The ability to suppress instinctive fear responses and project confidence in the face of mortal danger. It's remarkable. It's not remarkable to us, Ethan said. It's just Tuesday. Kessa laughed nervously at that. Just Tuesday. On your world, facing death is just another day of the week. More or less, Ethan admitted. Look, on Earth you learn early that fear is useful but panic is deadly. Fear keeps you alert. Panic makes you prey. So we develop the ability to feel afraid while still acting rationally. It's a survival trait. Commander Torvik finally seemed to accept what he was seeing. He tapped his communicator. All units stand down. The situation is under control. Repeat, stand down. We have no hostiles. He looked at Ethan with something approaching awe. Though I'm not sure I'd classify you as non-hostile either, human. Anyone who can tame a Vrital with their bare hands is definitely dangerous in their own way. Ethan smiled at that. I'm not dangerous, Commander. I'm just from Earth. There's a difference. Is there? Torvik asked quietly. Because from where I'm standing, those seem like the same thing. By the next morning, everyone at Galactic Academy knew Ethan's name. Students he had never met stopped him in the corridors, staring with wide eyes and whispering to each other as he passed. Some backed away nervously as if he might be dangerous. Others approached with careful respect, asking questions in hesitant voices. The footage from the lecture hall's security cameras had spread through the student network within hours. Everyone had seen it. The human standing calmly while a Vrital hunting beast prowled toward him. The way he had walked directly toward the creature without weapons or protection. The moment when the deadliest predator in the galaxy had submitted to him like a domestic pet. Ethan found it all a bit embarrassing, honestly. He hadn't done anything special. He had just used common sense and basic animal psychology. But to everyone else at the academy, he had performed a miracle. He was heading to his next class when Thrawn intercepted him in the hallway. The large KRLL student blocked his path, and for a moment Ethan wondered if there would be trouble. Thrawn had made his dislike of humans very clear before yesterday's incident. But Thrawn didn't look angry. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one leg to another. His armored plating scraped together as he moved. Ethan, may I speak with you? Sure, Ethan said, stopping. Around them, other students slowed down to watch, curious about what would happen. Thrawn's mandibles worked silently for a moment before he found the words. I owe you an apology. A significant one. I mocked you. I called you primitive and weak. I said terrible things about your species and I did it loudly so others would hear. I wanted to humiliate you. Ethan waited, saying nothing. He could see the struggle on Thrawn's face, the difficulty in admitting he had been wrong. And then yesterday when that creature escaped, I froze. My biology betrayed me. I couldn't run. I couldn't fight. I was completely helpless. Thrawn's voice dropped lower. I was going to die. I accepted it. And then you, the human I had mocked for being weak, saved my life. You walked toward death itself and made it bow to you. I didn't make it bow, Ethan said quietly. I just showed it I wasn't prey. Which is more than I could do, Thrawn said. His voice carried genuine shame. I have armor plating that can withstand small arms fire. I have strength enough to bend metal bars. I come from a warrior culture that prides itself on courage. But when real danger came, I was useless. And you, with your soft skin and fragile body, faced it without hesitation. Ethan considered his response carefully. You're not useless, Thrawn. Your biology evolved for different threats. Your freeze response works great against certain predators. It just didn't work against that one. That doesn't make you a coward. It just makes you a product of your world, same as I'm a product of mine. Thrawn stood straighter, some of the shame leaving his posture. That's generous of you. More generous than I deserve. But I want you to know that I will never mock humans again. I will never underestimate your species. And if you ever need assistance, I am in your debt. He extended one of his primary arms in the KRYL gesture of respect. Ethan gripped his hand, feeling the hard texture of Thrawn's exoskeleton. They shook once, formally, and then Thrawn stepped aside to let him pass. The watching students erupted into whispered conversations. Ethan caught fragments as he walked. Did Thrawn just apologize? I've never seen a KRYL show submission before. What else can humans do? Kessa caught up with him before he reached his next class. Her skin was a bright, happy blue today. You're famous. Everyone's talking about you. Someone made a compilation video of you petting the Vrital set to music. It has 3 million views already. Great, Ethan muttered. That's exactly what I wanted. To be known as the guy who pets deadly animals. It's not just that, Kessa said, bouncing excitedly beside him. The xenobiology department wants to study you. The psychology department wants to interview you. And Chancellor Mirasol sent a message requesting your presence in her office this afternoon. Ethan stopped walking. The Chancellor? Why? No idea, Kessa said. But when the Chancellor summons you, you go. It's probably nothing bad. Maybe she wants to give you an award or something. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of stares and whispers. By lunch, Ethan had been asked to sign 7 autographs and had politely declined 4 interview requests. He was relieved when it was finally time to visit the Chancellor's office. Chancellor Mirasol was a Valasian, one of the eldest species in the Galactic community. She looked almost human, except for her silver skin and the way her eyes reflected light like mirrors. She sat behind a desk made of some dark wood, her hands folded in front of her as Ethan entered. Please sit, she said, gesturing to a chair. Her voice was warm but carried authority. I've been reviewing the security footage from yesterday's incident. Quite remarkable. Thank you, Chancellor, Ethan said, sitting carefully. Though I'm not sure what I did was that special. That's precisely what makes it remarkable, Mirasol said, leaning forward. You don't see it as special because it's normal for you. But for the rest of the galaxy, what you did is impossible. Literally impossible. We've studied Vrital behavior for decades. We've tried every method to pacify them, to make them manageable. Nothing has worked. Until you simply walked up to one and treated it like a domestic animal. She pulled up a holographic display showing various creatures. Our xenobiology department works with dangerous specimens from across the galaxy. We've lost 3 handlers in the past 5 years because we don't fully understand how to manage these creatures safely. But you, with no formal training, neutralized our most dangerous specimen in minutes. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. I just used basic principles. Watch the body language. Don't act like prey. Project confidence. It's not complicated. To you, Mirasol said. But no one else at this academy was raised on a Class 12 Deathworld. No one else grew up learning to read predators as a survival skill. You have knowledge that we desperately need. She closed the holographic display and looked at him directly. I'd like to offer you a position, Ethan. A paid position as a xenobiology assistant, specializing in dangerous specimen handling. You would work with our researchers, teaching them your methods, helping us understand predator psychology the way humans do. In return, you'd receive full credit for the work and a stipend that would more than cover your academy expenses. Ethan's eyes widened. You want me to work with dangerous animals? As a job? Is that a problem? Mirasol asked. No, it's just, I'm only in my first year. I'm not an expert. You subdued a Vrital with your bare hands, Mirasol said flatly. That makes you more of an expert than anyone else we have. Think about it. You don't need to answer right now. But the offer stands. Ethan left the Chancellor's office in a daze. A job offer. An actual position working with dangerous creatures. It was more opportunity than he'd expected to get in his entire time at the academy, and he'd only been here 3 months. By the time he got back to his dormitory that evening, he needed to talk to someone from home. He opened his communicator and dialed his family. The connection took a few seconds to establish, the signal bouncing across light years of space. His mother's face appeared on the screen, smiling warmly. Ethan. How are you, sweetie? How's school? Pretty good, Ethan said, settling into his chair. Had an exciting day yesterday. His father's face appeared beside his mother's. Exciting how? Did you ace another test? Not exactly, Ethan said. A dangerous predator escaped in my biology class. Kind of had to calm it down before it hurt anyone. His parents exchanged glances. His mother frowned slightly. Are you okay? Were you hurt? I'm fine, Mom. It wasn't that big a deal. Just used some basic animal handling techniques. His younger sister, Maya, popped her head into the frame. She was 14 and always energetic. Did you have to fight it? Was there blood? Maya, their mother scolded. Then to Ethan, what kind of predator was it? Something called a vritau. About the size of a tiger, 6 legs, pretty dangerous. But it responded well to confidence and calm energy. Reminded me of that mountain lion we saw hiking in Colorado, remember? His father laughed. The one that followed us for a mile? Yeah, that was a fun afternoon. Your mother wanted to run. Running would have been bad, his mother said defensively. I knew that. I just didn't like being stalked. Anyway, Ethan continued, the chancellor offered me a job helping with dangerous specimens. Teaching the alien students how to handle predators safely. That sounds wonderful, his mother said. Very prestigious. A bark came from somewhere off-screen, followed by his sister's laugh. Oh man, you should have seen what happened this morning. Bruno chased a coyote out of our yard. The coyote was trying to get into the trash, and Bruno just ran at it barking like crazy. The coyote took one look at him and bolted. Bruno's getting brave, Ethan said, grinning. Bruno was their golden retriever, possibly the friendliest dog in existence. Or stupid, his father added. I had to explain to him that coyotes can be dangerous. He just wagged his tail at me. They talked for another 20 minutes about normal family things. His sister's soccer games. His father's new project at work. His mother's garden. The leaky faucet in the bathroom. Normal, everyday Earth problems. When Ethan finally ended the call, he sat back and thought about the contrast. Here at the academy he was famous for facing down a deadly predator. Back home it was just another Tuesday where the dog chased a coyote. His family's reaction to his exciting day had been mild interest followed by normal family conversation. That was Earth in a nutshell. Danger was so common so everyday that people just adapted and moved on. His parents had taught him predator safety the same way other species taught their children basic math. It was just part of growing up. He looked out his window at the alien stars beyond and smiled. The galaxy thought he was special, but he was just a normal human doing normal human things. It wasn't his fault that normal for Earth was extraordinary everywhere else.